Yo, what's up, everybody? You know who it is. Wavy, Wavy Thoughts and Talks. Basically, I interview people with different mental health conditions and try to destigmatize them. This interview, I'm doing John, who's PD Questions on YouTube. Everyone go subscribe to him. I've actually interviewed him previously, and so this is like a part two. Some things we didn't get to discuss. Anyway, I hope everyone really enjoys this video. It was really fun to do. And yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? How you guys doing? This is David with Wavy Thoughts and Talks. I basically run a series on my YouTube channel where I interview people with different mental health conditions. The point of these is to destigmatize disorders and humanize people afflicted with them. The best way to watch these is from an unbiased, non-judgmental point of view. What I'm trying to do is empathize with someone and put myself in their shoes, and I hope you do the same too. So with that being said, well, actually, hold on. This is actually my first person who's came on twice now. Uh, Tell people what you got going on.
All right. Hey, Dave, it's good to see you. And first, I apologize if my internet's a little bit unstable. The internet here is just a little unstable from
No, it looks
Ecuador.
good. It looks good.
All right, man. Well, hey, yeah. So my name's John, and I was diagnosed with NPD 35 years ago, or maybe even, yeah, about 35 years ago. And basically, I care a lot about this condition because it really kicked my ass, and I've had a lot of trouble. I mean, I had a lot of difficulty with my recovery that I really wish that there were more resources when I was younger, or I wish that I had maybe better mentors or better therapists. And I just like to share my experience.
Okay, okay. Well, just so you guys know, we like I just said, we did a previous video together. So if you want to, catch up in a way, go watch that one. It's a long video, but like watching in segments, it's a great watch. Especially coming from someone who's had this disorder for 35 years. So there's of course he's able to mention all his difficulties over the years, but it brings a certain amount of wisdom to people who might be watching who have NPD. Anyway, um, so so what's been going on in your life now? It's been about a good 6 months or something like that. 5 months,
Yeah,
4 months
I
maybe.
I would say like lately I've just been really busy. That's probably if I probably work almost too much. I work from home and I have like kind of my own business and I sort of I do like legal work. I work in the legal field and I do a lot of legal translation and I just take a lot of work. And so yeah, I just been really busy. And I've also had I don't know if you guys know about long COVID. You know, like the when
No.
people have after they have COVID, they have like these terrible symptoms. I've been probably for more than like 7 months now. I've been having like a lot of inflammation and
Oh
just
man.
really messed up symptoms. Yeah.
Please. I hope you get better, bro. I hope you get better. Okay, so let's get to the nitty-gritty of things. So
All
last
right.
time we did an interview, we didn't get to go down the DSM-5 criteria of what it takes to be diagnosed as a narcissist or someone
Okay.
with narcissistic personality
All
disorder.
right. I got
We're
you.
gonna do that,
All right.
but John has, disagreements in the way it's diagnosed, and we're gonna get into that. So I'm gonna go down it. He's gonna tell me if he experiences it, if he doesn't experience it, how he experiences each symptom, and maybe his disagreement with that symptom, and what might be a better thing to put as in a way.
Okay.
Um,
Gotcha.
Also, for a disclaimer, in order to be, I don't want people watching this diagnosing themselves. It's not the point. Just because you had a grandiose sense of self-importance one time does not mean that you have narcissistic personality disorder. It has to be daily, weekly. You have to notice it in yourself on a regular basis. Also, it has to for it to be a personality disorder. It has to impact multiple aspects of your life. So, your family life, your friend life, your work life, your church life, your relationship life. It has to affect multiple aspects, multiple different parts of your life. And you also need 5 out of these 9 some of the criteria in order to be diagnosed. And if don't watch these videos looking to be diagnosed, just go see somebody. But if the shoe fits a little too well, maybe listen to my guy John and watch. I've also interviewed 5 other narcissists, or 4 other narcissists. So go watch their videos, and then everyone can learn and prosper. You know what I'm saying? So that's my disclaimer. So we're gonna go down it. All right.
All right, let's do it.
A grandiose sense of self-importance.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I agree that that's a problem. Okay. In other words, and I agree people can be grandiose. All right. So my problem with the DSM, I think those symptoms are good for identifying people who may have narcissistic issues. Okay. So in my case, like, yeah, I mean, I have had grandiosity. Okay. And I still struggle with it. Okay. But the reason why I put a caution on this is that the actual problem that's causing the grandiosity, I think, is what we need to focus on. In other words, while I agree that having grandiosity is a sign, okay, it's also a sign of mania, right? I mean, manic people also get grandiose, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, grandiosity is a red flag. But when you have grandiosity, you want to be looking at what's going on with the person that's causing the grandiosity. Okay. So I can just tell you right now,
Exactly.
I have become very not interested in the actual symptoms. Okay. And I'm much more interested in what's going on deep down inside that's causing that symptom. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Like
because
I would like to think. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I like sense of hold on. First one, a grandiose sense of self-importance. I would like to know what is the cause of that. Why is that person
okay.
do that? You know, that's type of.
Yep.
I mean, you don't have to explain it, but that's what I'm trying to get at. I agree with you, and that's what you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
That's what I'm interested because if you want to fix, like, say, if you notice your car is steering to the left, okay, if you notice your car is steering to the left and all you do is you just fight it with the steering wheel, you might actually make the problem worse, right?
yeah, facts.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So if you got a problem with your suspension, just fighting it with the steering wheel, that's not going to fix your problem. You see what I mean? So you want to go down into the suspension and figure out why your car is pulling to the left.
I
And
forgot.
that's
I like your analogies. I forgot you had a few good analogies last time I talked to you. Okay,
right.
so a grandiose sense of self-importance. Jesus. Um do you experience this? Do you not experience this?
Yeah, of course.
And how do you experience it?
Okay, yeah, of course I've had that. And to be honest, when I'm in it, I don't notice it, but I notice it kind of after the fact. Okay. So like I've had periods where, I just get trapped up in just like fantasies and just like I can't stop thinking about like daydreaming about, being successful or maybe going back where I failed somewhere. And maybe if I could just do a few different things to not have failed. And I sort of have these like imagine like I almost imagine like in an unrealistic way like what it would be like if I was successful. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? In other words, I sort of somehow my fantasies don't include all the everyday difficulties of a real life. You know what I mean? It's sort of like escapist, you know?
Okay.
And so when over time that starts to inform the way I think of myself, like my false self. Okay. And so just how I fantasize about like a successful future, or if I daydream about going back in the past and having more success. Okay. Just like I don't add like the realism of the day-to-day, difficulties of life, same as I think of myself sometimes. I sort of think of myself without all the color and the difficulties and the dirty parts. You know what I mean? It's sort of like an oversimplified way of thinking.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's basically thinking in fantasy. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah. That's what I was gonna get
Yeah.
at. You know, but we
And
talked about that.
basically,
We talked about that previously. You know.
yeah, and basically, so yeah, so the grandiosity is sort of like thinking in fantasy. It's like a way of showing up your fantasy thinking. It's how it shows up as you think of yourself. Um, and basically I like to lately, like, I don't like to use the word fantasy because I think fantasy doesn't really explain. I think when we're in fantasy, we're really in oversimplified thinking. It's oversimplified thinking. You see what I
Okay.
mean?
I like it.
So it shows up as grandiosity, but grandiosity is a form of oversimplified thinking.
Okay, copy, copy. All right, so the second one, a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, it's related to grandiosity. Like grandiosity is you think you're so important. And so when you imagine, like, say, being successful, you're going to kind of exaggerate the importance. You're going to exaggerate, it's going to be sort of unlimited, and again, it's just another facet of oversimplified thinking. It's just your thinking doesn't have any realism to it. It doesn't have any, it's like thinking without nuances. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's fantasy. It's sort of it's simplified fantasy. Fantasy without it's kind of like it's sort of like fantasy without the fine print. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like how would you
Okay,
say? Yeah.
all right. Uh, a belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people or institutions.
Okay. Yeah, that one's a little more complex, and I have experienced that. Okay, I have experienced that, and basically, I think it's just another case of oversimplified thinking. It's another case where you're sort of thinking yourself like almost like you're seeing yourself almost like a cartoon version of yourself. It's not realistic. Okay. And so basically you're in a pattern of oversimplified thinking. All right. So like for example, like in real life, in like realism, okay, things are more complicated. There's more dissonance. There's more there's more, I guess when I say realism, there's more stuff that isn't just like flattering, just isn't just gratifying. But like somehow in narcissism, you sort of filter out all the things that could cause like a frustration, that could cause like an irritation, and you only process the very gratifying information. You know what I mean?
Oh
So
wow,
like,
okay, okay, it's like a filter.
yeah, you're just filtering out only what's great. So what comes out is only the stuff that would be like nice to think about, like, oh, I'm a great person, I'm not like everybody else. Everybody else is dealing with like, the troubles of life, paying bills, just the boredom. Well, I don't have to deal with that because I don't want to process that. So it's like you filter out things you don't want to process. The fact is, normal people just living normal lives, they have frustrations, they have boredom, they're just ordinary. And for
Trust me.
yeah. And so like say when you're in that narcissistic place, you're not processing anything that could cause you a frustration or an anxiety or a boredom. So like just thinking about being an average person and just living a meaningless life, that causes irritation. So you're like filtering out because you don't want to have that irritation. Okay. So it's like filtered out, and all you're processing is stuff that would be gratifying. So it's like a gratification issue. You know what I mean? And so again, it's just oversimplified thinking. You're just only processing content that would give you gratification.
Okay, okay. Uh, this is one of my favorite ones. A need for excessive admiration.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like if you're living in a real life, okay, it feels good when people admire you, okay, but it doesn't feel as good when people just treat you neutrally, okay, or when people maybe have a little criticism or whatever.
Say,
You
say
see,
it one more time. Say it one more time.
all right, like say if you're like in real life, all right,
Yeah,
it feels good when people admire you. Okay, it
yeah,
feels good. Okay, but when people are just neutral to you and they don't have any special admiration or anything, it doesn't have that good feeling to it. It's just sort of neutral. Or
yeah,
let's
yeah.
say,
I'm indifferent.
yeah, like indifference is not the same color. It doesn't have the same flavor as like packed with sugar, like approval or admiration. Okay. And I think you can just pack approval in there too. I think the DSM doesn't need to only say admiration. They could also say approval, like, being approved, because that also feels good. But basically, it's sort of like the things that other people do that make you feel good. That would be admiration and approval. Okay. Indifference, neutrality. Oh, you're just one of anybody, you're just an anonymous, regular, neutral person. That puts you again in that category of the average person. So it's sort of like, that raises all those issues. Like it doesn't have the extra charge of being like really positive, really special. And so then you have to live with the regular boredom of life, which is not all positive, not all good feeling, or worse, being criticized, that would be negative. So basically you're processing and filtering information. So you only deal with stuff that's gratification, that's gratifying. You know what I mean?
I hear that it's like though, but if you don't get that admiration, that excessive admiration, you kind of like go into a deep depression.
Well, yeah, basically, obviously, what's happening clearly with like now we're getting underneath the wheel turning to the left. You know, what's happening in the suspension? What's happening in the suspension, I believe, is that someone with narcissism, okay, is a person who really does not tolerate feelings of neutrality, boredom, or even maybe, you know, has a really strong negative reaction to things that have to do with, like, say, being treated neutrally, being average, or even, you know, things like adverse things like being criticized, you know. So
Yeah,
basically, just like the normal irritations of life and the normal maybe boredom and frustrations of life, the narcissist really doesn't tolerate that. Okay. And it's sort of like, imagine somebody who grows up, like, say you're growing up and you have like some friend who just cannot eat onions. You know, have you ever met someone
yeah,
like
that's
that where,
me. That's me.
yeah, you like,
I
and
can't
worse,
eat onions to this day, only if you put it in a stew.
yeah, exactly. Or like you give them worse, give them like raw onions. They're like, no, I can't touch that. It smells so bad.
Never, never.
And yeah, exactly. It's kind of the same thing. It's like what would normally for a regular person, like say a regular person doesn't like to be criticized either. Okay. A regular person can also feel bored if they're just an average neutral person. Like say if you're just an anonymous Uber driver and nobody knows your name and you're not positive or negative, you're just some average person. Even regular people feel irritated at that because it's kind of like, hey, my life has no meaning. My life, I feel bored. I feel like a nobody. I mean, that hurts in a way. It's like a regular, but see, regular people can tolerate that pain and they can process it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's like whatever.
But like, say, for somebody who has like narcissism, it's kind of like you with the onions. Okay. Like, just get me near like raw onions and it's like just the smell and it just makes me, it's like disgusting. You know what I mean? And so,
Uh,
like, for the same for the narcissist, almost like they have like an allergy, like just the idea of being just an average anonymous person, just a neutral, random, you know, forgotten person. That's like to them, that's like make them want to throw up. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So think of it like a super sensitivity. You know, just like some people have that sensitivity, they see those raw onions or they're around in a room where someone's chopping onions. It's like, I'm going to throw up. This is disgusting. You know what I mean? So
Uh,
it's like I would call it a super sensitivity. So that what you end up doing, you end up as you process information, you have to filter out stuff that's going to make you feel like shit, that will make you feel like shit. And
uh,
you're filtering out. Okay. And then when other people see your filter, you come across as a cartoon because you can't tolerate anything that isn't filtered to your comfort. So it's like comfort zone management. You know what I'm saying?
okay, okay.
It's like being in your comfort zone.
Yeah. I just want to get through them so that we
Oh
get
yeah,
so that
you
you can
got
go
it.
into what you were talking about earlier, how you want
All
to,
right.
so you have something to
Yeah.
say.
Okay.
Uh, a sense of entitlement. That to me, that's the same thing as grandiose, but you can.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Yeah, exactly. Like what is gonna be if you're that person where you feel like you're smelling raw onions, you know, if you see like an average person or you think of like being like an average person, you think of being like just and just an anonymous whatever, that'll make you just feel like it'll like you're allergic to that. It's like a person who has a sensitivity to raw onions. Well, the same thing. If you're not entitled, you're just some average ass person. You know, you want to be that guy that gets the front of the line, that's like a VIP, you know, that has a little more special. It's all the same thing about being special. So that entitlement is just another face of just not being an average ass, boring, neutral, anonymous, you know, person.
Okay, okay. Interpersonally exploitive behavior.
Okay, now in this one, I think is a little different. Okay, because yeah, it does correspond with being special. Because if you're special, then everybody's below you, right? But here's the thing: I don't think everybody who's allergic to being anonymous. Okay, I don't think everybody allergic to being anonymous wants to actually rule over other people. Okay, or wants to actually use people. So in this case, I think there may be a couple of explanations. Okay, I think there may be an inherited phenotype, or you know what I mean. Like there may be like a personality type that is sort of naturally designed to lead people. Okay, so like there may be people that do have like say a leadership genetics or like a personality type that's sort of towards like leadership. You know what I'm saying? And so in that case, you know, they're sort of like assuming a little superiority over people, so they end up kind of like steamrolling over people or using them. Or the other thing too, here, actually, let me change what I said because I just thought of something. Okay, if you get sick to your stomach thinking of people being like average or ordinary, okay, like if ordinary average people, if that makes you sick to your stomach to think of like being a forgotten anonymous person, okay, then even when you're around ordinary people, you can't fully process their reality because it'll be like they'd make you sick. You know what I mean? It would be like being around onions. So like if a narcissist really if someone really has narcissism, if they're around like say ordinary average people, that would be like you being around chopped onions. You know what I mean? It would make them sick. So when they're around like ordinary people, they have to kind of filter out their reality and they can't see them in their full flesh because that would make them sick. So they kind of have to dehumanize them to be able to work with them. You know what I mean? That may be what's going on.
So, yeah, so that's the exploitiveness.
I think you'll end up being exploited because you're not really addressing people as full people because you can't process who they are because that would make you sick. So it's like again, it's selective information. You're filtering information.
Okay, so this is also one of my other favorite. This is my second favorite one. A lack of empathy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it all follows from the same thing. If you're around, let's say, ordinary average people where their reality makes you sick, you can't fully process. You can't fully process all the information around those people because it makes you sick to be around ordinariness. Okay. It makes you sick. So you have to process, you have to sort of filter all the information coming from those people, and you really can't fully flesh out who they are and fully you can't fully receive all their reality because that's material that makes you sick, basically. It's like you're allergic to ordinariness. It's like, oh my God, it just smells like ordinariness. It's like, imagine like if you were walking into like some like Roach Motel, you know, like imagine if you went to some like crackhead hotel with like bed bugs and you know, like maybe like bodily fluids and terrible smells. Well,
Yeah.
that's how a narcissist would feel going to an average middle class house, let's say, you know,
Well,
or deal with
being around a bunch of people who have empathy.
or just average people, just normal people. You know what I mean? I'm sure when a narcissist is around people that they think are super high class, I think they probably have a little more empathy because they could sort of receive more. But even then,
No, sympathy or not sympathy, but like empathy. Like, all right,
probably
think
probably a little,
I think I get what you're trying to say.
yeah.
Because like my thing was like, like is can you put yourself in someone else's shoes emotionally?
Yeah, well, again, I think the narcissist is filtering information to block out all the stuff that makes them sick, basically. So, like, I would say, I'll take back what I said. Even if you're around, like, say, really high class or beautiful people, like they probably want to have empathy. But then the problem is, if you meet like a really beautiful or really high class person, it turns out that they're real people too. Okay, and it turns out that they have also their stuff that's like kind of ordinary. You know what I mean? So a narcissist probably only wants to see like the cartoon parts of those people and doesn't really want to receive like the real parts of those people. So probably
I hear it's like you take a snapshot of somebody when you first meet them or when you meet them or a snapshot of like your idea of them. You keep it there, and then once you get in a relationship with them or whatever, you start doing everything.
it starts getting more and more real.
Yeah, they start getting more real and deviating from your snapshot, and then that's when the problems start kicking in.
Right, but I'm sure like a narcissist, because a narcissist will never want to process stuff that makes them feel like shit. Okay. So basically, when you're around anybody, even if they're a fancy high class or beautiful, you're not going to be able, you're going to filter out all the stuff coming from them that is kind of like ordinary or sort of like off-putting to you. So you're never going to fully like process like full information from other people. And so that will prevent you from really relating fully to other people. You see what I mean? Because you just can't handle processing all the information from other people. So that would produce a lack of empathy.
Copy. I don't have fucking hair.
No, it's good.
Envy of others or believe that others are envious of him or her.
Yeah, that makes sense because like whenever you're around anything that's just sort of ordinary, it makes you like sick. Okay. So if you see people that sort of, I don't know, if you see people that have like extraordinary things that are not ordinary, okay, I guess it really pushes your buttons because you're so reactive to not being like, say, how would you say, okay, it's kind of a two-step logic, but it follows from the same thing. Like basically the starting point for narcissism is that things make you disgusted. Okay. Things make you disgusted and things make you despair. It's like despair and disgust. Okay. So narcissism starts with despair and disgust. All right. So you're going to resent that. You're going to resent that. So whenever you see people that look like they're above it all, okay, you're going to really resent that because it's almost like, I'm suffering here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think if you look at narcissism as starting from a place of disgust and suffering and despair, you're going to see there's going to probably be a resentment. Okay. And so you're going to almost kind of resent when other people don't have, let's say the burdens and the troubles you have, or you're going to really wish you had their high class status, because then you imagine you won't have to deal with all that disgust and despair. So it's sort of like you really yearn for being like free of any disgust or anything that gives you a despair.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah. No,
In
definitely.
other words, when you see people that seem to have like a better place, you sort of see them through a fantasy lens. And the
Yeah.
fantasy lens is that those people don't have to deal with anything disgusting. They don't have to deal with anything average.
Meanwhile, the child's getting raped by the uncle and like all this other stuff. Like there's all types of other things going on that you don't know. The father beats on the fucking daughter or the wife, and you don't even know. They just look real from the outer image. They just look real nice, and you're jealous of them because of that, not knowing that what's going on. The mother's a crackhead, like
Yeah.
you know.
Well, the bottom line, I mean, a narcissist is only going to see people through the lens that they're comfortable with. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just
Okay, so a demonstration of arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitudes.
okay. I think we just come across that way. Okay. I think we just come across that way because we have to see ourselves.
My
Hey,
bad,
dude.
my bad, my bad. I gotta.
You got to get comfortable.
Yeah, man.
All right. No, I think it just come across as arrogant and haughty because I think we cannot process ourselves as being ordinary. That hurts. That makes us feel sick. So we have to see ourselves as almost unrealistically above everything. Okay. And so I think that gives people the impression of arrogance. You see what I mean? I think it gives people the impression. And also, we cannot take seriously the world of the ordinary people. Okay. We can't take that seriously because it makes us feel terrible. So, and we might even actually have a bad attitude about it. Like we might have a hostile attitude towards like average ghetto, normal, just anonymous people. So we're going to come across as having kind of like a disdain, like a negative attitude towards ordinariness. So it all combines, but the source of it is just a tremendous discomfort with the reality of ordinary humanity.
Okay. All right. So that was the nine from the criteria. Everybody, you need 5 out of the 9 to qualify,
Oh
and
yeah,
don't self-diagnose. And yeah. So
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. Go help. If you go seek professional help. Don't watch these videos thinking they're gonna save you. They're not.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a red flag if anybody has those symptoms. Okay. No question. But I think that what's really happening with narcissism, okay, we want to look, okay, we know the car is pulling to the left. Okay. Your car is pulling to the left. But now we want to get into the suspension and figure out why is the car pulling to the left. You see what I'm saying? That's my concern. Okay. Because if I just fight the steering wheel, I'm not going to fix the suspension problem that's causing the car to turn to the
Yeah,
left.
that's
All
a
right.
fact.
So
I
basically
like
like
that.
a
I like that.
yeah. So just like I was trying to say, I think what's really happening with narcissism is we have a comfort management filtration problem where we're filtering information coming in to manage our comfort level. You see what I mean? And to avoid that discomfort that comes from we have an excessive sensitivity. We have that excessive feeling of discomfort, just like you feel around onions, basically. It's like super sensitive. Okay.
No,
And there may be even some issues for us where we just feel super sensitive around certain issues. Like say maybe some people might have a super sensitive issue around, let's say a girl maybe not being nice to you, or maybe getting fired from a job, or you can just imagine like some things make you so nervous because they're like super sensitive issues. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like imagine how you feel like with onions. but imagine like multiplied in different areas. Like you just have onions where the onions make you feel sick. But imagine if someone has broccoli, potatoes, tomatoes, mayonnaise, like all these different things where life presents all these things where it makes you feel real sensitive. You know what I mean?
Okay. Copy. All right. So, uh, I actually have a question from somebody. Obviously, by the way, everybody, we did this. We did this in like a split decision. Like literally, I didn't get a chance to take a shower. Like I'm just chilling, waking up in the morning. Like anyway, I told someone that I was interviewing you again, and they watched the video, and at
Okay.
least I don't think that it was asked in the interview. So she wanted to know, what's the worst thing you've had to deal with having NPD?
Okay, for me personally, the two worst things is not being able to have a career, meaning I wanted to have a career and I wanted to be successful like in a job, and I could not get along with people enough to keep a job. Okay. That really that caused me to want to kill myself. Okay. Because I mean, just time after time, like losing jobs. That was for me, like that's tied for the worst, along with not being able to have really good friendships and not being able to have a social life. Okay. So in other words, I was never able to like be a good friend and to have friends and have a normal social life. That really affected my self-esteem.
Okay. What was the second one? You said the second one?
Well, no, like being able to have friends and being able to have a career.
Okay.
I mean, those are two pretty important things for a man in the United States.
Um, and just for one more time, and if you could just simplify, I know you've actually mentioned it a couple times in this interview, but it was over other things. And we did it in the first interview, but I just want for people who haven't watched it and they're curious right now, watching this one, they're enjoying it. What what do you think narcissistic personality disorder is at its core? What do
Okay.
you think what do you think it stems from?
Okay. All right. Well, okay.
And then
Okay.
after
First of
that,
all,
I know keep
okay.
going.
Okay. First of all, I think at the very base of narcissism, okay, we are filtering information. Okay, we're filtering information to avoid things that make us feel really uncomfortable. Okay. And so basically we have like a discomfort with things that for ordinary people they can handle and we cannot handle. Okay. And for some, I guess like it's like a lesson in life, like living the ordinary life, living a normal life. There's a lot of despair, boredom. There's a lot of like frustration. There's a lot of even pain, and just being a regular human being, okay, that some people just can't even begin to tolerate. You see, and then other people they can tolerate it. In other words, like you,
It's the temperament of the person and how much they can handle and take through life
yeah, and also
and keep
maybe
going.
it may be temperament, but also we may be habituated as well. You know what I mean? Like say there was a time when I didn't like hot peppers, but I actually learned how to eat hot peppers. You see what I'm saying? So I actually gave myself the chance to learn to eat hot peppers. You see what I'm saying? And so like also like to some degree, there's a lack of adaptation where there just hasn't been the opportunity to actually get adapted to those things because there are some discomforts that we can tolerate with practice. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
if
definitely,
you if, if you have
definitely.
practice if you have practice, yeah, but you got to get
Definitely.
used to it. Yeah.
Um, and okay, and then I think I just wanted to. Okay, so do you think recovery is possible?
Okay, yeah, well I think it depends on the person. All right, it really depends on the person because there's another thing. Let me talk a little more about what I think narcissism is. Okay, so I think narcissism is definitely a filtration of information. Okay, where you're filtering information to manage your comfort and your discomfort. Okay, and obviously you got like some major discomfort around certain issues, about being a human being. Okay, where you're filtering that information out because it makes you very uncomfortable. So basically I think narcissism is a filtration issue. Okay, but I also think narcissism is a problem with being how would you say, okay, it's filtration, but it's also a problem where you haven't had the opportunity in life to learn how to take pain and to live with pain. Okay. Now, this is something I think that also applies to people who are in addictions and people, even I think ADD maybe in this as well. Okay.
ADHD too.
Yeah. because I really think that the symptoms of ADHD are basically just what is what shows up when a person hasn't learned to, like, say, live with like major discomfort, okay, and just to tolerate that just as a normal way of living. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I guess nowadays, I guess
Trust me, I can relate.
yeah, like nowadays we're not really teaching people how to live with discomfort as like a steady state, as like a baseline. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so, like, yeah, there are people who are more sensitive. There'll always be people who are more sensitive. If in any population, you're always going to have people that tolerate less and who have more difficulty learning how to tolerate discomfort. Okay, so so basically, the way I look at it is it's a combination. Okay, we're filtering information because we haven't either had the opportunity or we've had difficulty learning how to sort of tolerate sort of a baseline that's way more uncomfortable than what we think should be for a person. Okay.
Mhm.
And so I think, for whatever reason, if you're just raised in an environment, you could even be raised in an abusive household, but there's still sort of the understanding. Maybe you could even be in an abusive family, but there's still sort of that understanding that a person shouldn't be too uncomfortable. Like imagine living in a house where people are bitching each other out, cussing each other out, abusing each other, but they're always got their beer, they always got their pizza, they always got their favorite sports on TV. In other words, they're always comforting themselves. So the message in the family is that even with all that abuse, okay, there's still that feeling like a person should never be uncomfortable. If I want to watch my football, I watch my football. If I want my beer, I got my beer. If I want to watch my movie, I got my movie. If I want to go out and get laid, I go out and get laid. I do what I
I
want to do.
like that. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Setting the message in the household that you could be that he can be comfortable, but everyone else has to be in a state of hypervigilance and whatever. I like that a lot.
Yeah, well,
But hold on,
but
but hold on.
basically,
I just want to say, but do you believe that people with NPD can recover?
okay, I think it just depends. It depends. It's kind of like saying, can anybody learn how to eat hot peppers? You know what I mean? I don't know that. That's everybody has to learn that for themselves. You can't predict it. Okay. You could have the worst NPD. Okay. You could have the worst NPD, and it would be like, let's say his thing is kind of like the analogy of not being able to eat hot peppers. Okay. But that person could just decide he wants to eat hot peppers, and he could learn better than someone who has mild NPD who just doesn't have the guts to learn. You
I
see what I
love
mean? So you never know.
I love your grocery references because I work at Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
um,
But I mean, but it's kind of true. You know what I'm saying? So
so
like, say, let's just put it this way. Like, say, let's say this. Okay, there could be an addict who's way more into drugs than let's say you are. Okay, like say
me?
well, okay, let's say smoking your marijuana, whatever. Okay, I'm putting it out there. All right, you could find somebody out there
Damn,
who's like,
bro,
dude,
it's
but
legal in New York.
I know that, but let me say what I'm going to say. You could have someone who's doing like hardcore drugs, like they could be doing, like say they could be doing like fentanyl, they could be doing, like crack and meth, and they could be doing all this shit, like terrible, 100 times worse than the average user, right? And that person could end up getting totally clean and sober, okay, because they just somehow they saw the light and things clicked and they surprise you. So like even the worst people can surprise you never know. And then you could have some average suburban person who just does cocaine maybe once every 2 weeks, or maybe smokes a little pot or whatever, and they may never stop because it just doesn't click for them. You see what I mean? Or they stay in that cycle. You never know. The most severe people sometimes can do better because it's not a question of how severe you are. It's like there's like a light that has to click on where you just decide you want to really change your life, and that is really hard to predict in people. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, like I learned how to eat hot peppers, okay, but I'm probably not the most sensitive to hot peppers, okay. But what about somebody who really makes them disgusted to hot pepper? But if they just decide to do it, that's more impressive than if I do it, because for me it wasn't really that hard for me. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So okay. So we have about like 10 minutes left, and I know you want to talk about the things about the DSM-5 that you disagree with. So I want to give you time to be able to do that. So break it down to me.
Okay, man. No,
What
like,
do you disagree with the Senate criteria? And this is, and by the way, I completely agree with it either for the viewers at home. But
yeah.
continue.
Okay, no, look. I'm not disagreeing that the I'm not disagreeing that the DSM-5 identifies symptoms of narcissism. Okay, that it does identify, but it doesn't have any explanation. Okay, it doesn't have any explanation of why a person would be like that. Okay, so I think if you're going to get better, okay, you can't just fight the symptoms. Okay, you're going to have to actually get in there into why you have those symptoms. And I think you don't hear anything in the DSM-5 talking about filtering information. Okay. You don't hear anything in the DSM-5 talking about managing discomfort. Okay. Discomfort. Where does the word discomfort come up in the DSM-5? They never even mention it. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is that yeah, the DSM-5 is great, I guess, for identifying somebody. But if you really want to get better, the real secret, I think, with narcissism is you got to go to the places that are uncomfortable, and you have to learn to live uncomfortable. Okay. And here's the other thing too, is that when you get too caught up in comfort, okay, or feeling comfort and avoiding discomfort, okay, you start to disengage from the real world because you can't handle the real world as it is. You see what I'm saying? So in a way, like if you really want to get better, you have to first of all say, like, I know the answer for me is to take on more discomfort and to embrace the actual world as it is. You see what I'm saying? And so, like, even though it's super uncomfortable, the only answer to get better is to just embrace the world without filtering it. You know what I mean? Like, just as ugly as it is, just embrace it and get engaged in it. And that's why I really think for a lot of narcissistic people, probably the best thing, if you don't want to get an average job because that makes you sick to your stomach, like, oh, I don't want to work in a fast food restaurant. Okay, fine. Well, then do other things, like have your fancy job if you can keep it, but then get involved in more community activities and take on more, like, say, extra work, basically, where you're actually getting involved with the real world, okay, and dealing with real issues. Okay, and everybody has to figure that out for themselves. But if you're selecting how you interact with the world, you're managing your comfort zone, and you got to break that down. And you just have to just get totally engaged in the environment. And I don't hear anybody talking about that as a way of getting better from narcissism.
Neither
I
do
all
I.
I
Neither do I. Neither do I.
all I hear people talking about is working on their insight, working on their insight. Oh, I noticed the symptom. I know it's like that's not. I think it's like a sport. Okay, it's like a sport. If you're a real sensitive to things, and you feel really uncomfortable, you have to recondition your body. You have to recondition yourself to feel much more discomfort than what you're used to. You see what I'm saying? That's reconditioning, and that's basically like taking on a sport. You know what I mean? So to me, that's coaching. And coaching is, basically having, you can coach yourself, or you could get someone like a mentor to coach you, or like a coach. You could like have co-sponsorship, like people who are in drug addiction recovery, where they have like sponsors and stuff, basically holding each other accountable, and sort of like adopting a program where you just take on a lot more discomfort and you get engaged with the world as it is without filtering information. You know what I mean? And so that, you're not going to start by just wishing yourself to get empathetic. That's going to come after you've reintegrated with the world as it is, and you've actually taken on engaging with the world as it is.
I
And
fuck with
that
that. I fuck with that. I like that. I like that a lot.
and that's conditioning. That's conditioning, and that will take time. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
But
yeah. And
but just sitting at just
Rome was a built in a day. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Yeah, but just sitting around and noticing that I'm narcissistic and just noticing that I have these symptoms, that to me, this stuff about, oh well, he's self-aware. It's like, okay, self-aware, okay, fine, but what about reconditioning yourself to get engaged and to tolerate discomfort as a baseline? You know, a lot
Yeah.
of people are like, that like turns their stomach. Well, yeah, you got to get in there. That's like football practice. You know what I mean? You got to go through a few seasons of practice to even be like, to even get on the starting team. You know what I mean? It's going to take years. But, probably the best way to do it would just be to have like ordinary jobs. Or if you want to have your fancy job, then you got to have extracurricular activities that force you to get integrated and engaged in the real world as it is with regular people.
One of my last question, well, one of my last questions was going to be, what advice would you give to someone who has NPD? And you just did all that without me even asking. So my last question will be, what advice would you give to someone who, I asked you this previously, but
Right.
what advice would you give to someone who is in a relationship with someone who has NPD? Whether they've actually been diagnosed or the shoe fits very, very, very well and they know it's
Yeah.
just toxic, abusive behavior
Yeah.
regardless. And not
Yeah.
every narcissist is, and they're going to kill me in the comments. Not every
I get it.
narcissist is an abuser, and not every abuser
Right.
is a
I get it.
narcissist. But what advice would you give to them?
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm getting real tired. I'm getting real tired of all these people claiming narcissistic abuse. I think it's a lot of bullshit. I think it's a lot of bullshit. And I'm going to tell you why I think it's bullshit. Okay, I'm going to tell you straight
No,
up. I'm going to tell you, dude, let me tell you honestly, you can disagree, but let me
I
first
might
tell you.
have to. We might have a debate. We keep
We may have a debate, but I'm going to tell you why I think it's a lot of bullshit, because I think by accident, you can't be healthy and even be around a narcissist. Okay. If you're healthy, you can't even be around a narcissist. Okay.
Yeah, I
If you,
believe that.
to be around somebody who's living in a fantasy, you also have to be in a fantasy problem. Okay. So for somebody to even be around and be related to a narcissist, they have their own fantasy issues and they have their own selective filtration
No.
issues
Here's the
with
thing:
reality.
when you say unhealthy, I was in an unhealthy place in my life when I met someone who was custody related, but
Right.
but not exactly the way you just put it though. I didn't have a fantasy of anything. I just was in a
Yeah.
healthy,
Oh yeah. Okay. Well,
time
okay.
in
Now
my life.
let me say this. Okay. It's
So I
either
didn't
that
have high
you,
values for myself, and if I had high values for myself and boundaries, then I wouldn't even probably ended up being
okay,
this.
I understand that. Okay. So it's either you're going to have something where you're settling to allow yourself to be around people that you know give off toxic vibes. You know what I mean? In other words, someone you know is not, you can just feel it. All this stuff like,
Yeah,
oh, I
you
don't
just
know.
feel it. You just feel it. It's weird.
This stuff where people say, well, I didn't know what narcissism was until I saw Dr. Ramani. No, if you don't feel it in your gut, it's because you got a problem. Because a normal person will notice that
Well,
shit.
that's how I found
Okay.
out.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If let me just say how I feel. Okay. I think if you're a normal, healthy person, you're gonna sense the toxicity of a narcissistic or any other toxic person.
Well, listen, I'm from like basically New York City. So like I'm right outside New York City. Like there's shady people everywhere, everywhere. I'm always on point. You never know when I'm gonna get jumped or whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
So it's
I
like
get it.
I always look for like, if someone comes up to me and asks me for something or they want to do something nice for me, my first thought is, what do you want? What do you want
I
me to do?
understand. I get that.
So I
Well,
already have
hey,
that
look,
mentality.
I'm just going to put it out there. I just think that when like I can just say this, okay, like okay, to be around somebody who's narcissistic and to accept it and to say like, hey,
Yes.
I'm cool with this, at least for the time being. You either have to be not picking up things that a normal person, a healthy person would be picking up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There are healthy people that would just pick it up within seconds. Okay. That a person just doesn't feel right. All right. Their vibe's not right. Even if they're putting on the charm offensive or whatever. You know what I mean? Because like someone who feels too good to be true, like there's vibes you should be able to pick up. Now yeah, there's some people that are better than others at putting on the charm, like the false personality, whatever. But I think to get to the point where you're living in the same home with that person, you've had enough opportunity that a normal person should be picking up. So my advice is that if you've found yourself to where you're actually living with somebody who has full on cluster B, you need to check out in yourself the stuff that you have, that you're not processing reality fully, or you're accepting things that you shouldn't be accepting because maybe a low self-esteem issue.
I agree with that, but I want to tell you something. I want to not
All right.
enlighten. I will not enlighten you, but maybe enlighten some of the people
No,
watching.
it's fine.
I
It's
do
fine.
believe in narcissistic abuse, but maybe there could be a better term for it. But it's the mix of it's when, for me, this is me personally. Some people they notice a red flag, they're like, oh, like
Yeah.
fuck that, I'm out. I have boundaries. Da da da. I didn't even know what boundaries were until like 3 years ago, like 2 years ago,
I get it.
and I'm
I get it.
32.
I
So
get it.
met this person, really fell in love with her, da da da. And when I love somebody, I really, really, really,
I
really
know.
value.
But you see,
Like I will
that's
do
a,
anything for you.
I
Like
know, but
if you're my friend and you call me and say, yo, listen,
I
man,
know.
I need you to help me dig a grave. I might help him dig that grave.
But just notice,
Like,
but just
not
okay.
really, folks. But hold on.
All right.
Please, let me
All
get
right.
through this. Please let me
All
get
right.
through this. And I let you go. Hold on, let me get through this. So I'm a very loyal person, and with my family, and when it's someone I love, I will do anything for it.
I
Anything in my
know. I
heart
know.
is there. So basically, to say that is when you love somebody, but you don't love yourself enough, and you're constantly being devalued, up and down roller coaster. I'm not gonna get into the whole specifics of the relationship. I don't want to blow nobody's spot up, but like when it's been shown that it's toxic day in day out for years,
Yeah.
you hold on to this hope, and you hold
Yeah.
on to the good moments, the good memories,
I
even if
know.
it's like 70% toxic and 30% good. You hold on to 30% good, and it's never your reality being acknowledged. It's when your reality is never it's that's literally what gaslighting is. People use gaslighting
Right.
for so many different things, and it pisses me
I
off.
know.
Oh my God, it pisses
I
me,
know.
it pisses
I
me the
know.
fuck off. Like
I know.
gaslighting is when your reality is not being acknowledged. Now that can be lying, that could just be deflecting, that could be
Right.
whatever. But like when your reality is not being acknowledged, that is gaslighting, and that maybe that isn't narcissistic abuse, but that along with other things that maybe not flying monkeys, maybe that too. Flying monkeys. I never
Okay.
got
Okay.
flying monkeys. All this other terminology. I'm some of them are slipping my mind. All these other things in combination makes a certain special type of abuse.
Yes, it does.
When you don't have your point validated for years, or you don't even get apologized once, like not
Okay.
an apology once, like it fucks up your head, bro,
I
so
know. I
bad.
know that,
As an
but
empathetic person that loves somebody
yes,
that I
that's right.
would have ended up in jail for her, like I would
I
have
know,
done anything for her.
but
Like
here's the thing, David, but you're admitting that this all comes from your own vulnerabilities. You're admitting that you have
exactly,
your you
exactly.
have
But it doesn't
vulnerability.
mean it's
Now
my
there,
fault. It doesesn't mean it's my fault.
okay, well, hold
And it
on.
is an abuse. And it is
Let's
an
not,
abuse.
let's take a few steps, okay? Because I'm going to get close. I'm going to get close to what people call victim blaming, okay? I'm going to get close to it, not all the way. All right. So I understand this, but here's the thing. You are admitting it has to do with your vulnerabilities, that you love too generously. Your love is very generous. Your love is very unconditional, okay? But that is a vulnerability. All right. You admit that. Okay, that's a vulnerability. Now, they're coming in where you got vulnerabilities, okay? And what I'm saying, all right, I'm saying that yeah, that will if somebody takes advantage of your vulnerabilities, you can get hurt, okay? You can get hurt if somebody takes advantage of your vulnerabilities, but knowing that, okay, does a person not have some responsibility to be aware of their vulnerabilities? Because
Oh yeah,
otherwise,
no.
you're gonna serve yourself up.
I've been to that. It's not that like I'm asking for it, but it's just like I'm aware of my weaknesses in this
Yeah,
situation.
I mean,
And
basically, what you're
like,
saying,
like
what you're saying is that a person ought to have the right to have vulnerabilities and not be abused. Okay, they ought to have the right to have vulnerabilities and not be abused. That's what you're saying. Okay, but in the real world, if you have vulnerabilities, you open yourself up to possibly being abused. Okay, that's just
and then
part of
that's when it
someone.
becomes narcissistic abuse when it's using all those tactics.
Well, yeah, I mean,
In
now
combination.
I'm careful when I say abuse because, frankly,
And
I
and,
think,
and all my narcissists watching, I don't want to think I'm not coming at you. It's not like that. But there is just when it comes to cluster B,
yeah, yeah,
there's just a certain form of communication that
yeah,
somehow and amongst other things that just kind of tend for it to be abused. And I hold no
yeah,
grudge.
yeah.
I hold no grudge. I still care deeply for the person that I'm no longer with anymore.
Yeah,
It's
but
just
dude,
like,
I want to push back on the narcissistic abuse. I want to push back because I think we don't want to have a culture where we're not encouraging people to take responsibility for their own vulnerabilities. We don't want to celebrate people's vulnerabilities. Okay.
Mhm.
Having a vulnerability can also be a problem. All right. And here's the thing, like, I'm not telling people to have zero vulnerabilities. I'm saying be responsible with your vulnerabilities. If you know that you're very generous with your love, okay, if you know that you're too loyal, okay, you need to be a little careful, okay, because that can fire back on you, that can backfire on you.
Okay, Dr.
You know what I'm
John.
saying?
Okay,
Well, no,
Dr.
I'm saying, but it is true, right? I mean,
No, it's true, it's true. No, I was just making a joke. I'm a very sarcastic person. I make jokes like
yeah,
that at work at people.
but let me say this. Look,
Yeah.
I've also been with narcissists. Like, oddly enough, even though I'm NPD, I've been with somebody who's been a narcissist who made me feel bad. Okay, you know what I'm saying? And it was because of my vulnerabilities. Okay, there's nothing magical about a narcissist. they'll say things that make you feel like smaller than them. They'll say things that make you feel like humiliated, that make you feel like you're not an important person. Okay, but that can only cash out if you actually have a vulnerability to that. You see what I'm saying? If you actually have a solid, a solid, healthy personality, whatever, they could, the best narcissist could say all kinds of shit to you, and you'd be like, hey, that's fine what you're saying, but I know I'm okay. You know what I mean? You have that resistance. The narcissist can't, they can only brainwash you if you're susceptible to it. You see what I'm saying? And this is the same thing. People talk about cults. They get involved in cults. They say anybody can get in a
Yeah,
cult.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like, yeah, maybe anybody can get in a cult, but that's why we have to be careful with take responsibility for our vulnerabilities, because not everybody gets into a cult. Not everybody.
Yeah, no, no. But yeah, it's been about an hour now. I'm trying to keep it underneath an hour so it's like it's digestible for the people that watch it. They see over an hour, it's like, oh, I don't want to put that. I
I
think we're
know.
over anyway now, but anyway, listen, John, it was a pleasure having you on. You
Yeah,
always
dude.
you always come through with some wisdom, and I want to appreciate you always leaving comments and liking and showing support. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get your Instagram running and then start posting your things on it, your TikTok, your YouTube thumbnails on your Instagram pics.
Ah, okay. All
And
right.
promote. That's how I do lots of my things. That's why
Yeah, yeah,
that's why my
yeah.
subscribers are like 279, 80 now. But like my videos usually do more because I post to other places like TikTok and stuff too. So
That's smart stuff. You're gonna have to
but
teach me that.
yeah, yeah, I got you, man. And I'm definitely gonna get you on for a part three, but you always got a spot on my channel, my guy.
Yeah, and obviously, I always appreciate what you do, man. I can't say enough how much I appreciate what you do. I
Thank you.
can't say enough. I can't say enough about it.